there's got to be, there's just way too much chaos. We're talking about how much chaos there's this year, where Jonathan Taylor is like the smashiest smash of all smashes, and then maybe not even that good of a playoff pick. Maybe maybe not going to do that much for you once you
anti-Undertaker GIF. He did if you did the Undertaker GIF in reverse.
He went back in the
All right, Pat, we're back. We made it. Taking a little hiatus from our little podcast that we have going on here. Hopefully the people are excited. I don't know that this is going to be one of our... We'll save the 4-hour marathons for when we're dissecting Fernando Mendoza. And
man, I can't wait to dissect Fernando Mendoza. Where were you at on the post-game interview?
I didn't see. What did he do?
It was very polarizing because Mendoza has like a very, very specific energy. I think we can all come together around that. His energy is specific. And he, for some people it read like very authentic, very like, this guy is who he is. That's why he's so great. He's like in kind of a dorky Kirk Cousins way, but like lovable.
Yeah.
For me, it was extremely hard to take. And like to the point where I was like, I'm out. I know this guy's like literally just won the Big Ten, but I'm out.
Just won the Big Ten. Just beat one of the best teams in recent years. Like, why he just kicked the shit out of everybody.
I couldn't be more out. Like because what it is that I think so. The person's interviewing him, and the thing too is that of course they interview his teammates after, so you get the comparison. And I sat around. I waited. I saw the next interview. And I'm like, yep, okay, this is what it feels like when two humans interact. So the journalist, he's asking, what does it feel like to be here? How does it feel? And he takes the question and then he goes right to camera. It's a beautiful thing, man. We all came together. This is a group. We all were brothers. And he's like doing all stuff. And then he like finishes and like back to her. I'm like, oh man, it's like, it's very, maybe it's Gen Z kind of streamer energy or something. It's like very like, it felt like he's doing a TikTok. And
did he start doing a stupid dance?
He might as well have like done a dance. And I couldn't take it.
And his brother's
like,
his
talk
backup,
to
right?
this person. There's a person next to you,
They could have done a TikTok. Like his brother like pops out from behind. Right, just go full Mendoza family TikTok to celebrate the Big Ten championship.
Yeah.
No,
some people found it endearing, so I don't know. I think he's gonna be kind of polarizing.
He's definitely polarizing because, and I love that we're getting. This is what we do, right? This class,
like you said, we're not going to go down a rabbit hole.
We're not going to get into 3 hours of Fernando Mendoza. We'll see how long this goes.
That rabbit hole.
But the class, if you've looked at all, not great. Not a great quarterback. Good. Like he is probably the QB1, and he's fine. But
no,
like
I don't think he's fine. I mean, and this is leaving the interview stuff aside, which I think is funny.
But like, what is he? Kenny Pickett or something like that? Right, like as a QB1, is he even Kenny Pickett? I guess
I think he'd be. I haven't pulled like his numbers will go up a bit in my stuff, but I've been kind of going as we go. Let me see if I give him. What was Kenny Pickett? Kenny Pickett was the 20th overall draft pick.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's a Pickett level prospect in my model right now. But he's a worse number. I had Cam Ward as the worst number 1 pick. Going back to like 2011 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he would be like significantly worse than Ward.
He's definitely worse than Ward, and Ward stinks in the pros.
Yeah.
Too.
So yeah, I mean it's not a strong quarterback. Yeah, so he would come out worse than Pickett. With the same draft capital as Pickett, but he won't get the same draft capital as Pickett, so maybe that's unfair to say. But let's say he's the number 1 overall pick, then he comes out meaningfully better than Pickett, but he's just above Zach Wilson. He's below Jackson Dart even as the number 1 overall pick. He's tied with Mitch Trubisky, who was the number 2 pick. But that's probably Mitch Trubisky's probably like the level of like, and I think like Trubisky, maybe you can have a couple years where it's like, no, this could work out. This could be fine. And then, but I think he's a Mitch Trubisky level prospect. I'll put it like that.
Right. Surround him with a bunch of good weapons and it can go okay at times.
That's our pick.
Yeah.
It's a rough quarterback class because he's the top of it.
I'm way more excited to talk about, as everyone is, to talk about Jeremiah Love when we get to that point, because now that's a good.
There's some good receivers too. I haven't dug in as much on the rest of the class, but I know Love is good and the receivers look good.
And the best wide receiver in the class is not eligible yet to not in the class, right, but in the country.
The top two, right?
Yeah, not yet eligible to come out. But anyway, we'll get to the rookie stuff, of course, plenty. But you can see when you get to this time of the season, it's kind of a good little segue in that it's a grind, dude, in the best ball world, sweating out all of these injuries and the ups and downs. Before we went live, we were kind of talking about like what even is like a good team now heading into the playoffs, right? Like you would have said 36 hours ago, you would have said, yeah, man, like JT, right? Achan, like 6 weeks ago, you would have said, dude, Ibuka, best pickup, right? Ibuka's like the new lad or whatever. And like so much changes, setting aside injuries, right? Of course, you know, Michael Penix, Malik Neighbors, whatever, all these guys that are hurt. But there's so much. It's such a roller coaster. There's so much turmoil over the course of the season. I do start to get excited for like, let's like look at the rookies, because I can't keep staring down the barrel at some of these best ball teams that are like, it might be advancing. Like I might have like a bunch of advancing teams that I'm just like, I pull it open and I'm like, this is not gonna win. Like this has no chance. And this is one of my good teams.
The rookies are fun because it's a chance to be like really, really right and really, really wrong in like a clear cut way. You know what I mean? Where it's like, no, this guy sucks, and I thought he was good. Whereas like so much of the best ball right now, the funny thing about the best ball stuff though is it will feel obvious later.
Mm-hmm.
It will feel so much more clear cut later. Even though
we like record in 3 weeks. Yeah, we're gonna be like, well, right. This and
clearly this guy's the league winner, but we're not gonna like you can't even pick. It's tough to like how much Jonathan Taylor do you really want now? You know, which is like not Jonathan Taylor's fault. He's been awesome from that from a process perspective. He was an absolute smash, and he might well be a smash in every way you can imagine. But it's like it got obviously with the Daniel Jones injury, which is awful. It just makes things a lot tougher for him, and he'll be very chalky too. So it's like if JT had so there's that element of it as well. Whereas a ton of advancing teams, even with the last couple of weeks not being that strong, and they had a bye,
So what do you think? I kind of like that subject as a starter from what we're going to do, which of course 7 minutes in, and I'm going to finally now get to kind of the subject at hand. We're going to recap a little bit of what's happened in the season, some process hits, misses, just overall observations about the 2025/2026 season. And then we're going to look ahead to the fantasy playoff, the best ball playoff specifically, and like, who do you want on your teams? Who do you not want, right? Like, what are some possible takeaways that can happen? Maybe some good matchups. Well, I imagine the old JT against the Seahawks matchup is going to come up a bit if you care about best ball over the course of the next couple of weeks, which doesn't feel good with Riley Leonard. Like, it didn't feel good with Daniel Jones at quarterback. It really doesn't feel good. A 50%, like he has a 50% advance rate, Jonathan Taylor does. And you're going to run into the stone wall that is the Seahawks defense in the fantasy playoffs.
With Riley Leonard
or
Anthony Richardson, but that's not necessarily better.
Yeah, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But like one of my favorite things to think about is, I don't know that there's like a takeaway from this or like a lesson or anything like that, but like when we come to this point in the season, clearly, like logic would say, here's the like 10 best picks, whatever. And like Michael Wilson's going nuclear, right? Jonathan Taylor had gone nuclear. Was Ibuka like an awesome pick, right? Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, whatever. Like, how do we classify like the good picks? And then when you flip over the cards with your advancing teams, like, where do we stand on like, do I really want Jonathan Taylor on most of my teams? It's like this weird conundrum. Like, that's what makes this game so fascinating.
You'd rather have gotten there without Taylor, like pretty strongly.
But is that just like we just deal with the fact that this is a variance, right? And like, I guess part of the fact is 2 teams advance. So that's an interesting little nugget, is that even if you don't have Jonathan Taylor on a team, that's not prohibiting you from advancing.
Half the teams from every league.
Let's say he has 100% advance rate, right? Yeah, there's still half the teams don't have him. However, like, we don't want to actively draft worse players, right? That's like and like we could predict it if we tried, right?
No, I mean, if you said like how much Jonathan Taylor you want, you'd be like
all of it.
Well, you wouldn't say all of it because you wouldn't want your entire portfolio resting on one player, right? But it'd be like high. I don't know, maybe like 2/3 of your teams would have him.
Yeah,
So
67% or something.
yeah,
You want to be above, like if you said
like
we know the
way
results,
above.
we know he's 50%
Yeah,
advancing. You want to be over that number, I think.
yeah, yeah.
Given, but again, now we have this injury. It's just a fascinating little thing because last year, I almost wonder if literally we're going to have the fantasy gods are just up there, going straight Geppetto and like playing with us.
Going straight Geppetto.
Last year, Jonathan Taylor is not a very good pick, right? And Saquon Barkley was like, you idiots. How could you not draft Saquon Barkley? Now, I know Saquon went in the first and JT went in the second this year, but like, it would be so funny because JT, if you recall last year, was the guy you needed in the fantasy playoffs, and it was not Saquon Barkley. It's not that Saquon was bad. He didn't go full Josh Jacobs or anything like that, but you really weren't winning anything with him if you had him over Jonathan Taylor. Now, Jonathan Taylor looks like the advance rate god, great regular season, great rate, like in the marathon, if you're on drafters or whatever, like, yeah, of course, your home league, you want Jonathan Taylor. But in best ball, like, do you really want, like, it's such a weird thing. Like, do you want the really low advance rate piece? How much does it matter that they're low owned versus like, dude, Saquon's projection is just not very good anymore because of all the things that we've learned.
But yeah, I don't think it matters now. I think it matters. Like, you just want, like, so this is the week 15, like heading into week 15 is the, like, you feel as good as you're going to feel, I think, in best ball if you have, I mean, unless you have a good funnel, unless you have, if, but like,
how would you know about that?
That is a better feeling. But but like if you advance a ton of teams, like it's such a good feeling. And this is the week where you get to like, and live it up, like embrace that feeling, because week 15 itself is unbelievable in terms of how much pain with your portfolio just getting slashed with the way, these really unforgiving, week 15 cut downs. Whereas like you could advance 40 teams and not a single team gets through to the semis. That's like statistically quite reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think, like, if you tell me, like, what do you want your portfolio to be made up? I'd be like, of like the most highest projecting players you could give me. And I don't give a shit about how many other people have them, because I just need to like put up, like, you're just going to need to put up for 2 weeks in a row, really high scores to get through. And then, right, you'd hope in week 17 that you have maybe not even the whole roster being like unowned, but you've got certain guys that you were able to get through.
There's
like,
something there that you're like
you smuggle through someone like that. That's what you want. I think you want to have a bunch of you just want the team to be stacked. And then you happen to smuggle through a Bucky Irving who doesn't have a great week 15. And he actually does have a good week 16. But by the time he did that, like, so few Bucky teams survived that, like, it doesn't matter. Right. Or, or Bowers, right? One of these guys was so hard to advance, and then like he actually does blow up in week 16 and gets you through easily, but like there's just not that many Bowers teams left, so he's not chalk in the final. Something like that would be kind of perfect. Where I think, yeah, I'm just prepare yourself, gird yourself for how much this stuff is gonna be. You were just gonna lose all these teams. The teams you're most excited about are gonna die. Some team you don't think is gonna be that great goes nuts. That's hopefully right.
Right.
But that's where we're headed. Where, yeah, this week, even if you have a ton through, and then the funny thing is you might only get 20 teams through, 15 teams through, and you could still end up with a semis team. I had a really bad year last year in terms of advancing teams, but still had a semi team when, like, statistically I shouldn't have, or I was like right there. So yeah, it's going to be, there's so much more chaos left to come.
It's it's the swiftest change from, this is incredible. Like, before week 1 is probably when everybody's the absolute most hopeful, because we just spent all this time drafting and you haven't seen.
Week 1, not only am I hopeful about how many teams I'm advance, I'm also like certain I'm not wrong about anything. So.
Right, exactly. And then the first quarter of the Thursday night game happens. And then by the way, Isaiah Likely buries Mark Andrews in the first quarter of the Thursday night game, and we have all decided
2 years ago,
that Isaiah Likely
funny.
is this greatest pick of all time, and Mark
he was
Andrews
like a 2nd round pick in FFPC the next day.
And then it turns out like
literally, that's not an exaggeration. He went in the 2nd round of those drafts.
Correct.
Last year.
That was absolutely hilarious. And like Mark Andrews is like going undrafted. People are, he's cooked, whatever. And obviously things stabilized. But anyway, what I was going to say is heading into week 15 is kind of the time where, right, other than that, there's just the general optimism of a new season. But because you can tell yourself anything, no matter your advance rate. You could be awesome, right? You had a 50% advance rate and you're just crushing everything. You can tell yourself you're an absolute genius. You had a bad advance rate and you can say, I just got to kind of run okay this week.
Yeah.
Right. You can tell yourself, right, like you had a bad advance rate because you didn't draft Jonathan Taylor. Well, you can tell yourself, well, all I need is Jonathan Taylor to like not have a great game in this week and I'm alive, and I get the whatever. Like Bucky, right? Bucky pops up and scores 3 touchdowns in week 15.
McBride.
You have him. Yeah. Like something happens.
Like
right?
You probably have a good 2nd round pick if you got through without Taylor. So
yeah. Right.
You might be JT McBride or something. That's pretty, Gibbs McBride.
Or you just have like a totally neutral which I don't even know who that would be necessarily. It's AJ Brown neutral. I don't know. But you have like JSN, you have like JSN and like James Cook and like what, you've kind of covered off the JT guy. And then you have this other guy who's like low. So you can tell yourself this stuff, right? Where you're like, even if I had a bad year, right? Like I think I'm going to have somewhere around 14 or 15% advance rate in Best Ball Mania specifically. So a little bit under, but not too terrible on draft.
It's gotta be like Puka, Achan. We'll see, assuming he's good to go. Puka, Achan, JSN, Cook could be a start. Someone's got that
for sure. If you
I'd rather
pulled
have that than
McBride up, if you pulled knowing what we know
Bowers,
now,
I'd still be happy to have Bowers. Totally. Obviously, it's harder time to get him through, but
if you could, if you drafted him with Puka or something like that, like you got
some Bowers teams going through.
Yep. I'm very excited. Maybe we'll talk about some of the tight end stuff because I'm very excited about one thing I feel good about among an ocean of mistakes that it just happens. Definitely made this year, make every single year. The tight end stuff is like, man, like really like incredible. Like I have a ton of Trey McBride. I have plenty of Bowers. Get Kittle through, right? Can you
Kittle?
Find a way to get George Kittle through? Fannin just went absolutely nuclear. Literally, like 36 hours ago, Harold Fanning goes absolutely nuts. Tucker Kraft, was Tucker Kraft a good pick? I think so. Didn't work because he got hurt.
He was an awesome pick. I didn't really draft him, so that's not my bag. So I don't have much Kraft at all, but he was a smash. That dude took a huge step forward this year.
And so you can tell yourself all this stuff, right, heading into this week. But then, like you said, it's also then the most immediately on Sunday, by the Sunday afternoon games, you're staring down the barrel at like, dude, you had a 40% advance rate and you might get 2 teams through. And the guy with a 10% advance rate also might get 2 teams through.
Right.
So Rob and I talked about
so now you're equal
on our show. It's like you went from, you thought you had, that guy is miserable, thought he had a terrible season. You thought you had the greatest season ever, and you got to week 16 and you're the exact same. Of course, that it doesn't always work that way.
The tough part about it too is like, there are going to be, I think there are ways to draft to get 40 teams through that you actually like drafted to get 40 teams through, and like you let the rest, and then I'll let it all shake out from there, and you actually like actively hurt your ability to get through the playoffs and win in the final.
Yeah.
And then there's like but also you can just get 40 teams through by drafting awesome with all the same stuff we always talk about of like drafting for the end of the season. So it's not like you, by getting a lot of teams through, it means that you drafted for the beginning of the season. The ideal is to get all your teams through and have them all loaded up with players that do well at the end of the season. I do not subscribe to the idea that they would all be too similar to one another to that you'd that you wouldn't want to get them all through. I think you would want to get them all through.
Yeah, I think I can deal with it's a snake draft against 11 other guys. I'm not going to look unless I literally just pulled everyone up by like 3 rounds. Like I'm gonna have plenty of. I take big stands, dude. Like some of the bigger stands of and I could go through all my teams right now, and they're all wildly different. I have 60%.
Yeah, they're all quite
of
different
some
from one
players.
another.
And they're
Yeah.
very different.
Yeah. So get as many teams as you can through. But you know, it's if you're drafting for the end of the season, then you are somewhat, to some extent, sacrificing, you know, the pure. If we were just drafting to purely advance, we would draft a little differently than the way we do draft now. So you create, you know, a little bit of a disadvantage compared to people who are drafting more focused on like, all I want to do is advance. And so yeah, this is like hopefully the time to shine for the teams that built for the playoffs. But it doesn't mean that you will. Like, you know,
Right.
you could build awesome teams for the playoffs and then the wrong guys go off in week 15 or week 16 and it doesn't go your way. But yeah, it's chaotic as hell, and it's hard to figure out, you know, one slate, you know, it's tough to take too many lessons from. But at the same time, like this is a really fun time of the year because, you know, now you get to the end, like I have a ton of Luther Burden, right? And Luther Burden still hasn't really done anything.
That's the name I was
I'm
going to bring.
so excited about having Luther Burden now, you know, like that's because like Luther Burden is the quintessential pick where I have 18 BBM teams and per BBMDB expected 19.6. So hopefully a couple more get through tonight that have Luther Burden. So like he is one of like my big pieces. Now, Luther Burden might do jack shit in week 15 and 16 and 17, and it's not a good pick. But like it's the type of, he was one of these guys that I like kind of put, you know, like a flag plant play. He might be my highest drafted player. But he was a big flag plant play, and it's fun to see him now getting more usage. And even before Rome got hurt, he had taken over as their slot. So it was all kind of headed that way. And you know, it might work out, it might not. But like to me, this is like a really fun time of year because you get to see these types of picks who to this point may have done nothing for your round one, but like this round is just as important as 14 previous weeks. And then the next round is just as important as those 14 previous weeks as well. And if we can just get 1 week from a guy like Burden, Bashal Tootin, it doesn't seem as likely. He was banged up last week, didn't do anything. But man, if you could get that running game looks awesome. So if you could get a week from Tootin, I've got 16 Tootin teams coming through, and Tootin hasn't done anything. But I've got Tootin, you know, so like you can, I talked about like smuggling guys through to the final. But to me, what I'm trying to do with some of this stuff with these rookies and some of these later developing guys, unfortunately, I did not take Christian Watson, but like, man, what a smash he would have been as a late season hammer. So kudos to you if you were on that one. But then, you know, you get these guys through. They didn't maybe help your advance rates through the first round, but they might still help your advance rates to the final. By hitting in week 15 and 16. Like it's just fun to see like, okay, which guys are kind of starting to bubble up as not just players that you want on your team, but players like you want on your team more than the guys who are getting tagged as league winners in week 6.
It's an interesting idea. Like, as you were talking, thinking about, because you mentioned, you know, so we have advance rate players, you know, obviously the Jonathan Taylors of the world, but there's lesser, he's cooled off a lot, right? But like, I think Keenan Allen could have probably been considered like a nice advanced rate pick, right?
That's a good one, yeah.
Late wide receiver. Like even if you were drafting Keenan Allen, you would not say like this is this year's Puka, right? Like nobody was saying that. It was like, no, he's just too cheap. Everybody said he's
maybe it's this year's Thielen from a couple of years ago,
right? He's
which
not.
He kind of has
Chargers
been, or at least he was early.
It probably is, and Thielen was very similar. So you have that. Right, let's just call that the advance rate guy. That's like, this was clearly a team a guy that helped you get guys through. But then you have the like get me to the finals guy, right? Where that could be a different thing. And I'm not trying to say that it has to be a certain.
Keenan has a 22% advance rate, so
right. See, Keenan
was a pretty good advance rate piece,
solid pick. And then you have this guy wins it for me in the finals, and the last two are some can often be thought of similarly, right? Like Burden could fall in either one of those categories. Like he could have the big week 16 that gets your whatever, right? Bowers has a bad week 16, but you just get Burden went for 102 or whatever, right? In this spot in Fan, and you happen to have Fannin with him, right? And Fannin catches a touchdown. So like, cool. Yeah. Now you got Bowers through. Bowers has
I happen to have Fannin on a lot of teams, as it turns out.
Me too. Yeah. Me too. That was nice. That was very, very nice.
That was very nice.
I'm not a Shador fan, but I gotta say it's much nicer having Shador back there for Fannin and Dylan Sampson are two of my highest players across best ball. So this has been a nice rejuvenation. Just for my mental health, I can't watch Dylan Gabriel play professional football anymore.
Yeah, Shador is. I'm not in the Shador is good camp, but he is a lot more fun. You got to give him that. He's a lot more fun than Dylan Gabriel.
He can do things on a football field that Dylan Gabriel just physically. Dylan Gabriel.
He mostly he points and then he throws it out of bounds. but he also does some cool stuff. I will give him credit. This was a pretty decent game. He's coming off a pretty decent game here.
Yep. In a loss to the Titans, where Tony Pollard set a career high rushing yards against the Browns. Spoiler: I bet his rushing under. He broke that on the one carry in the first quarter. I was like, oh, this might not go very well for me this week.
Browns' run defense been good this year, and they were awful in that game.
Awful. Tony Pollard went for 170 or something like that in that game. Yeah, a career high. As good as Pollard was with the Cowboys, that was a career high single game rushing for Tony Pollard. But anyway, there's this and that's how I'm trying to think about, because I'm getting better at some of this stuff, right? The people would come for you and say, "Oh, you zero RB bros, you idiots, right? You faded Saquon." I'm like, I'm well overweight Jahmyr Gibbs, and I feel awesome about that. I'm double the field on Jonathan Taylor. Like I feel obviously.
Dude, I was sweating bullets on because in my Legendary Upside article, you want it. Part of me is like, just hedge, dude. Just be like, Bijan's a great pick, do it. But I was like, I'm not taking Bijan. I'm just telling you, I'm not taking Bijan. I've had opportunities in the high stakes leagues and in best ball. And, basically, if you give me the chance, I'm just taking Gibbs. I'm not taking Bijan. I'm taking Gibbs. And he was going behind him. And I'm just betting on Jahmyr Gibbs over Bijan. And Bijan, the thing is, Bijan has been a great pick. So maybe that was dumb. But Gibbs is just God. He's not even it's not even all happening. He's still splitting with Montgomery to a degree, and it's dude, this dude is different. So
this is
I'm happy to see it.
And we talked about it. You and I talked about it. If there was a running back in the first round that you had to I don't remember. One of the episodes that we're asking kind of these theoreticals. You had to take this running back 101, right? You couldn't do Chase, you couldn't do CD, you couldn't do whatever. You had to take this running back, and we were both just Gibbs. It was Gibbs. It was Gibbs, and it was not even hate on Bijan. It's just
I put in Bijan's thing here to look at his advance rate, and that's why his name was. Yeah, but Gibbs. We both said Gibbs,
right? And it's sometimes it's nice to get one. What Kevin from The Office or whatever when. They're doing construction and they had to park in the satellite parking lot, and he's mad, because he's sweating and his feet hurt and all that kind of stuff. And after they go and they get the guys together in the room and they're give them their parking spots back, and he's so mad about the parking spots, and he's just they do the quick little interview with him. It's just nice to win one sometimes. You know what I mean? It's that's how I feel about Jahmyr Gibbs. It's you know what?
We all win with Jahmyr Gibbs. That dude, he's just so fun to watch.
It's just incredible. It's really nice to root for the early round running back instead of being God damn it, there goes Saquon again. Last year it was every time you ripped a 60-yarder, it just felt you lost a year off your life. And now when Gibbs is doing it, it feels quite nice. But
and Prime Vision,
just unbelievable. So when it's exactly what your thesis was, sometimes it's just luck. Things shake out a certain way. But sometimes it's no, literally, this is what we talked about for months is exactly happening. But there's this weird, balancing act that I'm still trying to learn lessons from of at what cost do we take some of these home run swings? How do I appropriately balance the home run swings on individual teams, right? So here's an example. Yeah. I really liked Jalen Royals, but fully admitting it was a home run swing. Right. This is I don't think Worthy's that good. Hollywood's kind of cooked, but I think the Chiefs are going to be good. Rasheed's I like him. I like him a lot, but there's a lot of weird, anarchy going on around him. Kelsey's kind of cooked. If this dude's good, and I kind of think he is, obviously that probably is not true, but over the summer, if this dude's good, man, you could just step into a real role on the Chiefs without an injury or something like that. Now, clearly that was wrong. And so I look at him on a lot of these teams where I'm did I need him? Was he still a good, right? Taking 20%, was that good? Was that bad? Should I have done Keenan on this team? And like, because part of you's like, well, he's also like the Burden style bet, where like if he does nothing all year but emerges, right, he just takes Hollywood's job or something like that later in the season, you're feeling really good about that. So this like balancing act of during draft season specifically of taking these lessons from like Burden versus Royals versus Torrey Horton versus Keenan Allen versus Michael Wilson versus right Wandale versus Kyle Williams versus like there's like all this kind of stuff, and you don't want to like over index on the results from the one season. But I do try to think about that a lot as someone who very much prioritizes the late season upside, but can also run into over prioritizing it certainly on individual teams.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to a lot of the rest of the team. Like looking at PBMDB, Royals has a 14% advance rate right now. Kyle Williams is at 14%. And like I took a bunch of Jack Besh, who probably
Dante
has
Thornton
similar. He's at 12.5, so he's not been there. He's below expectations, although he was going much higher. Thornton's at 12%. So I mean, these guys have hurt you, but to me, like with these receivers, I think you can swing. The running backs to me are the, in some ways, like the true home run swings, where like they might not like literally see. Like Jack Besh is out there now.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Besh probably won't do anything for the whole year, and is probably just a straight up bust. But Jack Besh is playing. I don't know how many routes he ran this past week, but like he's out there now because he's their second round pick.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just always very likely that he was going to be out there. He's not, I don't think he's good. He ran 31 routes this past week, and he had 6 receptions for 50 yards. He's pretty live to catch a touchdown in week 16 or something and actually like help a team get through. Now he's probably like a Tyquan Thornton level rookie pick, where you're just like praying he scores a touchdown in the right week.
It's also not his fault entirely. He's certain
it's not his fault. I mean, no,
the Raiders.
I'm like happy I was happy to see Kenny Pickett. That's where the Raiders are at. So
they just need to change. Like, I don't ultimately think this is Geno's fault. We don't got to dissect the Raiders. They have the worst offensive line I've ever seen in my entire life. Like Ohio State was out there with a better offensive line, and they couldn't block Indiana in the big. Like Indiana would sack Geno 4 times or whatever. Like, and Geno is not blameless, right? None of these guys are blameless. I guess Bowers is probably blameless, but like none of these guys are blameless. But it's just not his fault. It just was not our bet. If you took Jack Besh in the 17th round, that the Raiders were going to be the worst offense in football.
No, but I think it does show you like kind of the rookie. To me, the guys that I tend to go towards are like more the guys with draft capital. Although like with a Puka guy, I want to be, if there's the drumbeat around a guy, and this is why I kind of took some Deontay Thornton, because they're like installing him as a starter day one.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I thought he was going to be Puka, but it's like, hey, like this guy has the potential to actually help you to just be good right away and matter. Mm-hmm. But he could also like obviously be one of the guys you need at the end of the season. So if you have that drumbeat, that helps.
Yeah, the flip side is I took a bunch of Torrey Horton as well, which makes me feel like obviously that the run out has not been great for him here for he got hurt, and then when he gets hurt, then they trade for Rashid Shaheed.
Yeah, that was kind of a bad beat. Horton, he looked good.
I think he's good. Like I think we'll be drafting him next. So that's the flip side to all this, is like similar to the Kraft thing, is like I think Torrey Horton was right, like generally right, like a good, just an overall good pick. But then it doesn't work out
to me. I think
that's the chaos.
I do think draft capitals is such a, when you get the discounts on draft capital, and one of the reasons I was just like hammering Luther Burden, as I was like, this dude was like, seen as the number one wide receiver prospect in this class, for like kind of like Debbie stuff, coming, like he was, and wasn't he the number one wide receiver in the nation coming into college?
Mm-hmm.
3-year guy comes out. There's some off the field, not like serious off the field stuff, but like
he's just a diva.
Kind of some crap about
he's a wide receiver diva. He's
but they like who's the guy? Bob McGinn. You know, his stuff. They were like, oh, these old scouts didn't like him. That type of off the field stuff. So, and he fell to the second round. So clearly, the NFL had some concerns.
Weird final year. Yeah.
Yeah.
He would have been if his third year went the same as the first two, he would have easily been as the second year. He would have been much higher drafted. But it was just a weird final season.
It's still like plenty of draft capital and plenty of talent. Where it's like, I'm pretty sure this guy's gonna be on the field by the end of the year, even if it's like a Rashee Rice thing, where it's like we're like, man, this isn't happening. Like and that's what happened. Remember, you got that concussion, and at that point, I think pretty much everyone, not me, because I just didn't want to believe it, but everyone would have been like, yeah, this is over. This is not doing anything. But it's a long season, man. It's a long season. So when you get that draft capital and the team's invested in seeing what they have, I still think we just almost have like blind bet. Like we get another Jack Bech, I'm going to blind bet it in the 16th round again. Like that's what Chase Claypool was, and he was both a bust and a smash as a rookie. And I think this is a game that really rewards having guys come on at the end of the year, and that draft capital is just a really strong indicator of who we're going to see at the end of the year. If a team drafts a dude in the second round, unless they absolutely suck in a way that's very uncommon, like Jalen Polk did,
right?
Like that's just a miss. Like if a guy's that bad, if it's bad enough where the team just straight up moves on after their rookie season, then it doesn't matter what the draft capital was. But that's pretty rare. That level of bust is pretty rare. It's so much more common for someone to bust like a Kadarius Toney or Claypool,
Tyquan. And then the Tyquan still stick around.
Tyquan,
right? And he bounced around a little bit. Now he's on the Chiefs, and he provided some useful weeks. Right, he was like an advance rate piece, honestly.
Yeah, most NFL busts at least have a with draft capital. Most guys in the first, second round, they still go on to play a little bit. Even if it's just the rest of the rookie contract, on another team or whatever. They don't just wash out of the league immediately. I mean, even Jalen Reagor caught on.
AD Mitchell, AD Mitchell is going to keep getting shots from every, because he certainly has talent, right? He has whatever talent that never actually shows up on the field is. AD Mitchell has that in spades.
But I shut up last week a little.
I know he finally had a good game, but AD Mitchell is the king of. He's going to be 30, and people are going to be like, I promise. He's always open. It's just the quarterback. And I'm like, he's played with 15 quarterbacks and none of them throw him the ball. So you're just not going to tell me that he's always, I'm done with the always open thing. I do think AD Mitchell's interesting, not to make it about him, but same thing.
No, he's one of those guys too. I mean, he's not a rookie, but he's second round pick. I have a bunch of AD Mitchell, especially on DraftKings you have the extra rounds. And I've got a bunch of him because it's hey, this dude's, he kind of had a redshirt rookie season, but he was behind someone else. He flashed. His yards per out run's really good. Maybe he makes a play on Alec Pierce's job, which he never did. And I think a lot of Colts fans would have correctly told you wasn't going to happen. But
quite good.
Well, he got traded, so I still someone was interested in him that wasn't the Colts because they thought he was a really good prospect. So that draft capital to me just matters a ton. And when you look at building teams, I do think you want to think about if you're with the guys like Royals and Horton, how many of those dudes you have on the same team, because those guys are more likely to be zeros. And then if you have them with guys like a Jaden Blue or some of these more speculative running back picks, Tootin was one of my, where he was definitely speculative and a fourth round pick. And so it didn't, those guys are zeros or close all the time. But if you just if your team is loaded up with those types of guys, then you're so much, you put yourself in a position where you could actually hit on one of them and the team still doesn't advance. So it's, I think portfolio wise, I do want to be overweight on a lot of those types of bets, but the specific team, it's nice to advance. It's nice to advance over expectations with a lot of players who have under expected. They advanced less than expected. And the way you do that is you kind of mix up which speculative late season play you put on a given team a little bit.
We're working on something. I literally just met with Hacker, who's our CTO, end of last week, and we started to crystallize kind of like what you're talking about, this exact problem that we're describing now. Because I personally think it's like probably my biggest problem is not, it's really not like any, we're going to be wrong about certain, right? Like you said, Jack Besh, like he probably just sucks, or like Jalen Royals, like, you know, sometimes it's wrong, but sometimes you get Torrey Horton, sometimes you get.
But give me Jack Besh on my team. If I have advancing teams that have Jack Besh on, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. I know he's probably not going to do anything, but I didn't pay anything for him, and he's gonna run like 30 routes again, probably.
Right. But figuring out in the draft how to blend together these archetypes of players, because like, look, I fully admit, like, I just like the sexier, fun names that I can dream on, the rookies, the young players, the whatever, like guys that I just think are talented, whatever. But like, I also need to make sure that I'm like checking myself, sort of, right? So like, oh, you like Burden. Yeah, you like Burden, you like Tootin, you like Jack Besh, you like Torrey Horton, you like Harold Fannin, right? You like Dylan Sampson or whatever. And it's like, you can put all those guys on the same team, you know,
Yeah,
like you like them all. They're all like core parts of your portfolio. But every time you draft Luther Burden, you probably want some, you know, we've coined them, right, like chaperones. I think that's not the convo for today, but a convo for next summer is addressing I think a chaperone thing is very real. I think we're really bad at identifying chaperones and like managing them and putting them onto teams. But I think we want these, right? Like, it would be really great to have Keenan paired with Luther Burden to, like, we talk about handing the baton and stuff like that. And it's not just those guys, but like, how do we blend these things together? Because I want to have exactly what you just described. I want to have an above average advance rate, right? I'm not going to pipe dream about some insane number, but I want to have a really good advance rate. But I also don't want to forego the advance rate to like give up too much Burden, to give up too much Besh, I don't want to give up all of my Jalen Royal swings, right? But maybe I can do it better with my Jalen Royal. Like, I want to have some home run swings. I want to have all these these archetypes, but I also don't want to like advance too few teams, because then you just never have enough shots on goal. But I don't want to have a bunch of weak ass shots on goal. Right? It's like I want to find that fine line. And
to be clear, I'm not like going through like, I hope I see Jack Besh here. Like, I'd rather not.
You heard it here first.
Way more fun. But it's like one of those things where it's like Jack Besh is like a horrible pick, right? In any form of fantasy, like Jack Besh is like Jesus, but not in this form where like he's actually fine. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. Like, he's like running a lot more routes than guys. Like, he's gonna run more routes than Keenan Allen, right?
Yeah.
This week, you know, in week 15. I guess we'll see tonight how many routes Keenan Allen runs, but it'll be. He's got a good chance. But you know, obviously there's like lots of guys like Quinshon Judkins would be, you know, kind of one of these guys, especially you got him late. There are kind of later round guys, and then there's later round veterans too, like Javonte Williams, like just never turned into a pumpkin. He's just been a really awesome pick and not someone I was on. So yeah, there's different ways to get there, but yeah, I mean, we both have our tools, and one of the things I love about the Sidekick is that it does help you do this. Is that, you know, we've got Sims now working for the recommended pick. So it's one of these things where like I IKB'd off of, you know, what the Sidekick was saying to get more like Luther Burden, but then that team I just like I hurt its chances of advancing when I take a Luther Burden, because we don't, you know, as much as I liked Luther Burden, we never had him as like an absolute smash in the early part of the season or whatever. So, you know, so
is
then
that what the Sims are helping you with that specifically, because they're optimizing for more right? Your IK,
because the Sims are basically saying
Burden. They're optimizing for like advance rate, early season production and stuff. So you need to know when to dip away from there to balance the two.
Yeah, your team now has, like, we now expect this team to score fewer points in the season. Now that you took Burden, compared to like a running back there, like it's like Burden versus Aaron Jones or something, right? Like, I'm taking Burden in the 8th instead of Aaron Jones. It's like, well, this team's like pretty desperate to score points now to get through to round, to get through round 1. So we have it, set up to where it like we're simming out this team's ability to get through each round the way you actually do have to get through each round. So it's able to, the next recommendations are going to factor that in, that your team doesn't have as much ability to get through. So, or less with Burden, most likely. And so, yeah, so that's part of it. And that's, I think, one of the key things. But even if you're not, even if you don't have the sidekick or whatever else, like you're still wanting to think through this like in a big way of like, what am I? And it does. I think one of the things that conceptually we probably overemphasize is age, where it's like, oh, Keenan's a chaperone because he's old.
Right.
Well, Michael Wilson was a chaperone,
Mm-hmm.
and he's not old, and didn't do shit for like the whole season, and then crushed at the end, and now has like a 23% advance rate, and probably, maybe even a little, it'll be about 23%. It looks like based on the expected over at BBMDB. So, it's like not even the chaperones aren't necessarily guys who are going to produce in like week 4, because everyone puts up points in week 4. Like Michael Wilson was a chaperone because during bye weeks and weeks where like Cam Scadaboo's no longer on your team, or like the team's gotten a lot weaker, could like desperately use a receiver. Michael Wilson, who was always locked into full-time routes, didn't have any competition behind him on the outside. Harrison gets hurt and he just gets targeted a bunch for like 3 weeks and puts up points. I mean, no one would have expected him to do what he's doing, but like those types of like, hey, he's definitely going to run routes. Like an Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce was a chaperone. And so I think that's one thing to think through. I think next year is like, it doesn't have to be age. It doesn't have to be like this guy has a role and someone's coming for that role, but he'll produce for me in the first 6 weeks. I think some of these guys is like, this dude's on his rookie contract. He's very likely to retain his role. Pierce, your mileage may vary there compared to where you're at on AD Mitchell, but he's likely, he's got a role on the team. He's pretty good at it. He'll probably play the role the whole year. He probably spikes 3-4 times during the season, and he costs a 15th, 16th round pick. That's a chaperone too, not just like Keenan will produce for 6 weeks and then turn to dust.
Yeah. Yep. And that's what's so interesting about it too. I do just want to say on Michael Wilson, a couple things, a couple of lessons / non-lessons. One, I think what we've learned is now maybe this will also end up being foolish in 2 years. We'll look back and like, oh no, he's actually pretty good. I don't believe that actually. He's fine. He's an NFL wide receiver. That's what I believe. Right. To this extent that he's scoring fantasy points, this feels like the most Travis Fulgham-ass shit I've ever seen in my entire life. Where I think Travis Fulgham was a professional wide receiver at that point in time, and things just can shake out in a particular situation to where if you're just good enough, you can put up a bunch of fantasy points, right? But there's a lot, like you have to get over a certain threshold of being talented. And I was not convinced he was that. As a matter of fact, I would have told you in July that I don't think he is above that line. That was wrong by a lot. But right, it's like every time Marvin Harrison comes back, it's like, oh no, yep, there's Michael Wilson back to being Michael Wilson. Right, when he had Kyler Murray, it was like, who cares about this guy? Right, like he's
it's a big win for the First Street Target community, which I'm a part of. Like, it's so clear that they are installing Michael Wilson as the guy where the plays are running through Michael Wilson.
But they have no other alternative. What are they? Xavier Weaver?
No,
Who else is going to be the first read? That's what I'm saying.
Of course.
He's better than those guys. He's much better than those guys. But he goes first read goes away, right? It's not.
Yeah. Well, then Marvin Harrison comes back. He's the first read on those plays, and Wilson's not. To me, I mean, it's not great coaching. Like maybe like mix up. Clearly, both these guys can play. So like, why are you running it all through Harrison? Yeah, it's not working. Well, it is working as long as Harrison's not. Or is it because they keep losing all their games?
That's what they're. That's the last thing that I was just going to say is, I mean, sustaining drives and helping your team sustain drives is important, but they're down multiple scores every single game, throwing 50 plus passes. Right. This is also like Cedric Tillman-y when Jameis was back there.
That's such a good comp.
Where it's like
this is this year's Jameis. Yeah.
Cedric Tillman is a professional NFL wide receiver, and when shit goes crazy and other guys are hurt and your pass volume spikes. It's like that kind of player can do this, what Michael Wilson is doing. Like I said, I was wrong in exactly like where does Michael Wilson like fit? Is he capable of this? Like I said, I would have said no. That was wrong. But it's still also right. Like if you drafted Cedric Tillman last year because you're like, look at all those numbers he put up. It's like, well, look, it didn't play out right. It's not Jameis throwing 50 pass attempts anymore. It's Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, and it just don't work. Right. It's just not. And obviously some other things have changed. But that's this weird thing where like, if we look back in 2 years and you're like, Michael Wilson's on a new team and he's like, he's the new, like, whatever, Jahan Dotson on the Eagles or whatever. Like, he's out there. He's not very good. He's a wide receiver in the NFL. I'm not saying that's what he's going to be, but I'm just saying if we look back and you're like, yeah, this was Travis Fulgham, this was Cedric Tillman, this was whatever. Like, were you wrong? Like, you were still wrong because Michael Wilson ended up being an awesome pick this year. And I think that's one of the things that at least I personally struggle with because, right, we care about, like, we're analyzing these players all summer. Like, I want to draft the good players, right? Like, why are we drafting, a lot of these guys is not just because like, they're a second round pick that matters, but also like most of the guys aren't rookies. So we're like assessing how good is this guy, right? Why did people draft Jaden Blue? Not really because they like Jaden Blue, because their assessment was that Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders suck, right? Which is fair, which is totally fair. But like that balancing act of like in Dynasty, you wouldn't have touched Michael Wilson with a 30-foot pole, right? But in
I actually
best
have him
ball,
on a pretty good Dynasty team.
That's hilarious. But he's on.
it's like
I lost.
Did you just like see him on your bench? Because I'm like never. It's like I also have like Audric Estime. I haven't thought about this dude, but it's like 14 teams, so like I didn't cut him.
I have him on my two. I played 3 non-FFPC, like 3 home leagues or whatever that. Yeah. Michael Wilson's on two. I mean, I added him, but I picked him up on 2 teams, and I'm starting him every week. It's just like, well, if I'm going to lose all my best ball players, at least I can do well in these. Like he's just filling in for like I lost Malik Neighbors, and I'm like, it's fine. I have Michael.
It's fine. I'd rather have Wilson, to be honest.
Right, exactly. Anyway, but that's the conundrum, right? I know you're big in the dynasty space. We talk about, right? We do 3-hour pods on rookies where we're like really trying to get to the nuts and bolts of like how good are these players. And then in the best ball game, sometimes that just like totally doesn't matter, and then sometimes it really matters, right? Like Puka Nacua was a superstar. And if you identified that Puka Nacua was a superstar, congratulations. Like you just won all the money. But then sometimes it's like, you were right, Michael Wilson's just whatever, right? Cedric Tillman is just whatever. Like figuring that stuff, and I don't know that we'll ever figure it out, but that's what you're trying to balance,
because you're like, how much firepower do you have later? Like, do you have guys who can come on and just be like the absolute, like had to have it players late, or like are you? And it's funny, like Hayden's talked about this, where like certain players are like on, paired with other players because it's like the same type of drafter tends to take these guys, but like not doing that as much and taking more out. I didn't take any Alec Pierce. I think I have like 1 Alec Pierce team, right? I took 10 Michael Wilson teams. I just checked. I have 3 Alec Pierce teams, 10 Michael Wilson teams. So I was underweight on both these guys. So it's more. It's not like me saying like, oh, you should have drafted Alec Pierce like I did. I didn't draft him, but it's like I'm trying to think through it for next year a little bit more of like, yeah, like Alec Pierce and Michael Wilson, they can be kind of chaperones in that same way. I didn't draft any Cedric Tillman. I literally did not draft Cedric Tillman once in Best Ball Mania, but he was a little bit more expensive, and he was like coming off of one of the years where he was that same formula where it's like you caught lightning in a bottle a little bit with Jameis and the pass volume. And Jameis is gone, and they've got the quarterback situation has gotten worse. And I didn't want to pay for that. Like, I think so. The price of it is important, but the archetype,
and just like
I think,
the likelihood of, like you said, the lightning in a bottle happening. Yeah, for 2 seasons.
I don't have any Rashad Bateman, who was at one point like one of my favorite players, but. I mean, it's just clearly not happening. He was an expensive. He was like, what's the difference between Michael Wilson and Rashad Bateman? Now, of course, it's like, well, you just want Michael Wilson.
The only thing you would say, and this is another interesting part of it, is like the only thing you would say is Ravens,
right? You would say, I don't think we want to pay. So if we're paying for Ravens versus Cardinals and not for the player, I think that's probably bad in this type of game, because Ravens doesn't mean what it did at the beginning of the year. And Bateman,
no, it doesn't. Good Lord.
Yeah. And Bateman has been okay, but we all knew he was the number 2 wide receiver, probably the number 3 option on the team.
Target. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, I think figuring out like these guys who, I mean, Hollywood Brown was another version of this, who I took a little bit of, but not a ton of.
Right. No one was saying how, like,
I
you
took
could
2 of those teams actually.
You could certainly
so
like
very
if
little.
you can make a case for anyone, right? But like you could certainly, I guess, make a case of like Hollywood's been banged up and all, whatever, he's going to bounce back a little bit. And like, I'll listen to it, I guess. But there was no like real tangible argument of like Hollywood's just a stud. And
and he was kind of expensive. And he was, it was that he was the classic chaperone of he'll produce while Rice is out. And then who cares? But it's like, what if like he doesn't produce when Rice is out?
Right.
Because then he's just useless.
It reminds me of, I always remember this because I know like Gretsch was on it. I remember talking to Gretsch like about this player. This was the year Javonte was still on the Broncos, but coming off the bad knee injury. And so the premise was they signed Samaje Perine, if you recall, the Broncos. And the premise was exactly that. Well, Javonte is like maybe going to start on IR, going to be, they paid this guy in free agency, right? A very Hollywood type of situation. Like we kind of like the Broncos, right? This was Russ and all that. We kind of like the Broncos. And so it's like, well, he's probably not going to be anything in the fantasy playoffs, but as like zero hero running back type bros, like this is the kind of guy theoretically that you think that you need. We're so bad. Like this is like kind of my chaperone thing is like you said, like Michael Wilson and Alec Pierce were awesome chaperones. When did anyone ever talk about Michael Pierce and Michael Pierce? I just put them into
just make them one.
That would be that would be a player I would be interested in.
Pretty good.
Pierce and Michael Wilson together. But we never, right? It's always like Keenan Allen and Adam Thielen, and I'm as guilty of this as absolutely anyone, right?
Yeah.
Chuba Hubbard,
it's just easier
right?
to think through. It's like
or like the early
Kamara's
running back
because he's old.
He's old, or the early running back that we don't really think is that good, but I think he's the starter in week 1. And then it's like, who was the real chaperone at the Panthers backfield? Fucking Rico Dowdle, who went in like the 16th round. You know what I mean? Like we're just not very good at that. That's one lesson I think that I feel it's not just like a single season thing. It's like we come in every year and we're just like, well, this guy's going to get me through the first 4 weeks, and it's like, how accurate are you ever with that?
It's more about the guys who don't do anything all season, even once, are probably rookies, right? Or are probably backups who you think could, have contingent value. Like it's more about like how many of those guys do you have? Because you're right. Like if you're like building a team that's just like loaded with guys who aren't going to produce for most of the season, and then it's like it's fine because I have Kamara, like it's not fine. Kamara sucks. It's over. He used to be awesome. He's not awesome anymore. So
I gotta say, my boy Kendre also getting hurt when Kamara officially turned to dust, and Kendre was playing.
I've got some big board Devin Neal teams.
He's on? I didn't draft that much big board Devin. We're riding the Devin Neal, RJ Harvey late season explosion, and because I liked Devin Neal. I think we talked about him.
I have
liking him.
I'm advancing 3 big board Devin Neal teams. Look at that. Let's go.
Gotta love. By the way, I know. I think we were.
One of them's. I'm only expected to advance 2.4, so one of them's on the bubble.
You got the Devin Neal game too, and still on the bubble.
Still on the bubble.
God, the big board. What just such a insanely wild but fun.
Very fun
tournament. But yeah, I don't want to keep going on this. We'll talk a lot about this over the course of the summer and stuff. But I'm trying to think now in this moment, because after just like the last thing on this, like you said, we'll know like who you need, right? Who was the guy you actually needed in a few weeks. I mean, we'll know on Sunday to some extent, like some guys that you needed, because like somebody's going to go crazy, and it's 1 out of 16 advance in Best Ball Mania. So you better freaking have, that guy, or pray that he's not in your pod. Right. So I like to like at least start to crystallize, not necessarily some like lessons or takeaways, but some things to think about, and really just that like that blending, like, because it's really easy, like you talked about using the Sims and stuff. It's also really easy for the Sims to lead you down. Okay, I'm gonna divert on Burden but then you do a little too much, right? That you do a little too much of the like is just one, right? Like late season guy. I know I'm being hyperbolic, but like it's just like, oh, you did Burden and then you did all boring dudes, right? And it's like that doesn't work. Figuring out how we can, like I said, have our cake and eat it too, really, amongst this late season upside, but also drafting teams that can we can realistically advance these teams while having an understanding that like who saw Rico Dowdle just taking Chuba's job, right? Who saw like Torrey Horton was like helping advance Torrey Horton helped advance my Luther Burden teams. Like what the fuck? That doesn't, doesn't make any sense. So there's like a level of chaos that we have to acknowledge, but we also still want to try to learn stuff. And I try to do it now because like our brain's going to be rotted in 3 weeks where we're like, yeah, Bucky Irving scored 50 fantasy points in week 17. Like, what's the lesson from that? Like fucking nothing. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, to me, and with the way I draft the sidekick, it is kind of like I'm sort of saying like, no, like even compared to, like what we think as a collective leg up, like I'm like Tootin's going to be the truth biter in this season. So give me some extra Tootin because that's like one of the guys I'm just really betting on to exceed expectations, even relative to other people who are high on Tootin. And then so that's going to be kind of some firepower, but then you are going to need some dudes that produce and help you get there in the first place, but there are a lot of different options that you can pick from. So like one thing I think I did do a better job of this year is in part because like this is something that we have the psychic kind of helping, just reminding you of, even if you're not always following it exactly, like it's reminding you that hey, there's like a number of different options later in the draft that you can pick. Like I probably had those 10 Michael Wilson teams. Like probably 0 Michael Wilson teams a couple years ago or 3 years ago. Where I'm like, totally, I'm not drafting Michael Wilson, but it's like, hey, like actually this guy could be useful on this team because you have a bunch of rookies. Like this is an RJ Harvey, Trevion Henderson team, and like in your brain, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna crush all season with these guys. I don't know if you heard, but like Harvey is the starter in Denver. And then it's like, actually he's not. And now this team's, I remember checking teams in like week 7 and 8 and be like, I don't have any running. What? I literally don't have running backs. Who am I running? And it's, Harvey's on this team. So, but the way we have that, the way we had it ranked, it's like, the Sims would have been a little bit less, they would have been more skeptical of Harvey as an advance rate piece than I would have been personally. Yeah. So it helps. Yeah, it just kind of keeps you honest a little bit that way. But I think, at the same time, if you're just betting on like one guy, it's like, oh, it's fine because I'm hammering Adam Thielen. That would have worked and it would have worked and then it didn't work at all. Mm-hmm. So you do want to, I think, mix up these bets and then also like be incorporating a number of those types of bets on any given team. Because like, dude, Michael Wilson, we're talking about as a chaperone. Michael Wilson might be the nuts in the playoffs.
Right.
Like he might be the guy. And it's like, who would have thought that? So, and we've had this before with Zay Jones, who I was like, come on,
Michael Wilson's backup heading into the season, by the way, which is
that's
coming full circle.
But the year he signed with the Jaguars and they didn't have any receivers, he was like the guy, I think in week 15.
Top 30.
Or one of the guys. Huge helpful piece is a late season hammer, which I would have, which I was shocked by at the time. So that archetype, I think, does have value. And then you have the running backs, the running back side of this is so interesting because you mentioned Dowdle being a guy who is like literally an advance rate piece. We'll see. He honestly might just be an advance rate piece. It's possible he doesn't really do much going forward.
Yep.
Because Hubbard's kind of coming back up. So some of these contingent guys, you think they're end of season plays, they might not be. Some guys have had their run. Like if you happen to have a Tucker, he was an advance rate piece. So Sean Tucker would have been an advance rate piece. Rashad White's not even a great one, but he's an advance rate piece.
You mentioned like looking at teams and not having running backs. I lost my last eliminator team. It's week 14 in week 12. Okay. And it was a really nice run.
Good run.
If you recall, it was a Jamar Chase team, and the fucker got suspended. We get to like there's like 60 teams left or whatever, and I lose my first round pick to a suspension because he spit in a dude's face. But it didn't ultimately really matter. But it's funny you say that because you can put together teams that just like you said, you look at it and like, how is it like, dude? This is the eliminator. This isn't just like, oh, it was advancing, like you survived or what. Like, I mean, obviously, I'm surviving in the eliminator, but the running back room was it was. I mean, Dowdle was carrying it, but it was like Dowdle, Algier, like Chris Rodriguez.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think, Charbonnet, whatever, and it's like none of Dowdle was a good pick for at least for a while, but just generally a good pick. And Sean Tucker. And I think Keaton was like Keaton Mitchell was on there, whatever. And you're just like, you don't look back at the season. This is one of my favorite things about best ball. Like you were just like, we've been talking about like Jack Besh. Like nobody says, yeah, if you didn't have Jack Besh, close your laptop. But like, that's what happened. You look at, I drafted 7 fucking running backs on this team. And there's not one besides Rico Dowdle where you're like, it was a 0 running back team, which also I was told you can't do an eliminator. You're like, none of them look like smashes, but it was like, I don't know. Algier popped up for one of his good games, right? Survives. Dowdle has a couple of big games. Sharp scores a touchdown. Sean Tucker pops up for the 30 ball, right? In the Sean Tucker week, I think I used Keaton's like 1.6 or whatever at RB2, but Sean Tucker goes for 35. Who gives a shit, right? When you have Chase and Pickens and all that kind of stuff on the team, Trey McBride on the team. It's like, there's that weird part of it too, where in redraft, right, we have to set our team, we have to set our lineups. So it also like really the hits are like
hits have to be
season-long hits. Yeah, whereas in this, it's like, dude, Tyler Algier is a fucking awesome pick. Like awesome pick.
Yeah.
And Bijan's getting 25 touches every week, but Tyler Algier
Tootin's hit my lineup multiple times.
But I think Tootin is still like
it didn't work, and it kind of still worked.
At worst, neutral. Like he's like a neutral pick, right? Which is like, man, it went for a rookie who doesn't really see the field that much. That's an incredible an incredible win. So like there's always just that weird stuff like in the best ball space, just where like the blending of scores is like Tyler Algier and Zach, like the starter didn't get hurt, and I like got to the top 50 of the eliminator. Like what? How, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, I think. Yeah, I mean, Algier has a positive advance rate. He's at like 18% and it didn't work, right? So that it's a great point. Like these guys who it doesn't work, it still kind of works. That's now Tootin only has a 13%, so he has hurt your team.
Oh, the Slappies were drafting Tootin,
and the Slappies are drafting. We're pairing him. It's actually because he was paired with Jaden Blue too much.
He's paired. Well, he hasn't been a great pick, but who do they play in week 17? What'd you say? That would be another one. Who do they play in week? Who do the Jags play in week 17? I've forgotten the.
It's ETN has been such a smash. I don't have enough of him, but I have some. I have a little.
Yeah, me too.
Just a sprinkle. We'll sprinkle of ETN.
Just enough to where I can at least search the ETN teams.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't really want him to go crazy, but there are worse. There's worse.
I only have 6 ETN teams, but I'm advancing 4 of them. It's kind of like that type of year.
The Colts. They play the Colts, who they just ransacked and now have Riley Leonard. So yeah, ETN or Tootin could be pretty good.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think the chaperone type of pick is probably like an ETN or something. Some of these running backs, I think, can be like a little bit more like a Tracy is funny as a chaperone pick because he was and then he wasn't and then he was again. God, I have way too very few Tracy teams. Is he? No, he actually has a terrible advance rate. That's funny. Because Scadaboo was such a smash, dude.
And Singletary takes all the damn touchdowns. Tyrone Tracy was finally starting to play well, but Devin Singletary gets all the
Scadaboo was a chaperone. Scadaboo was an 18% advance rate, so he actually chaperoned some teams.
It's crazy. I mean, J.K. Dobbins, right? J.K. Dobbins, another like in that similar range of like maybe he profiled more of like that. That would be the.
He's a classic. We correctly identified a chaperone. And I'm assuming so. Actually, he's a neutral advance rate player, but injury, he would have been above advance rate if he had.
That's an interesting one. Before we should talk a little bit about the actual fantasy playoffs. Where are you at on something like a pairing? You like Harvey, but you also acknowledge that J.K. Dobbins is like probably going to get a majority of the work to start the season. Putting them together and literally,
I like it so much better with the Tootin and a ETN. Compared to a Harvey Dobbins, where Dobbins was to me, I was like, I want to be Yeah, price wise, I want to be taking both guys, and I don't want to get, because this is like something that you struggle with as a drafter, where it's uh, like I don't want to I have 16 Dobbins teams, which is overweight, right? Wasn't my expectations would be,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I think what is it, 12? 12 would be your expected, yeah. So I'm a little bit over. I was a little bit overweight on Dobbins, and I was pretty heavy on Harvey. So in the past, I'd be like, well, it's Harvey. I'm not going to draft Dobbins. But like being able to live in two different universes, in the universe where you don't have RJ Harvey, J.K. Dobbins is actually a really good pick. Thinking through it that way, I did a bit better of a job this year because I had I keep trying to pull up Harvey. Hang on. Harvey teams. I had 35 Harvey teams, so I was like very overweight on Harvey.
Mm-hmm.
But then being able to also take an overweight position on Dobbins, in part because I was like, I bet, and this hasn't really happened because Harvey isn't very good, I don't think. But you're like, this Broncos team has to have a better running game this year. Like they've got a great offensive line, they've got a good defense. The problem was actually Javonte. Then he goes, it's really good for the Cowboys. So I guess I misread this whole situation, but that was what I was thinking.
We're all trying to figure out who did this. There's a particular coach who is at the center of this. That is possible. We have slightly overrated.
It's possible. Although Dobbins ran decently. I think Harvey. I blame Harvey for some of this, but
Harvey kind of is who we thought he was, in the sense that he's a little Ken Walker-y from the way running style.
Yeah.
It just he.
I wish he was more explosive. If we're gonna have him be Ken Walker-y, though,
right? He hasn't hit any, but he tries occasionally. Too much where he doesn't hit the hole. He's gonna bounce. That's what he did at UCF. Yeah. But he was a constant bounce it to the outside to try to hit home runs. Guy in college.
Yeah,
and that doesn't always translate. Or it takes time, or you need to earn trust. And luckily for our Harvey bags, it was forced upon Sean Payton and co to give him more work, and he's getting the work. And so the real life part doesn't ultimately matter that much, right? That's the beauty of the running back position. Is it matters. It obviously matters. Like watch Jahmyr Gibbs play, right? It matters. But for like Rico Dowdle is fine, and he was putting up 30 fantasy points multiple weeks and was good last year, right? I think draft the veteran Cowboys running back, by the way.
Draft a veteran Cowboys, not too much of a veteran. Don't draft Miles Sanders, but draft the actual starter. Yeah, I think as far as pairing guys, I want it to be cheap. So Etienne and Tootin was kind of the way to do it this year. You could have done Scottaboo and Tracy, I guess. So even that wasn't like super cheap.
That was like 8-9 or something like that.
8-9, yeah. But if it's both are in the double digits, or one is it like 9 plus a double digits guy? I mean, I wish I had some Javonte Jaden Blue teams. I didn't really draft Jaden Blue that much because I just never bought him into. I just didn't think he was good. I just, if he was good, he probably would have played at Texas. Was my read, but I also didn't draft any Javonte, so that's like, what if I paired them both? I have 6 Jaden Blue teams, and Javonte I probably have even less. I have one Javonte team. That was way too big of a stand.
One of the few things that it's a good example. We both have those, right? Like everybody does, I think, where you look back and you're just like, and it's not just a result.
Why didn't I just draft 2 Dallas Cowboys running backs, including Javonte more?
And the results, I always struggle with it because people say, well, you're just being results oriented. And sometimes I think other people are being results oriented. But what the results can do, and this Javonte example is a good one, where it can just be a reminder, or like it can spur some thoughts where it's like, we don't necessarily want to always just go hammer every next year's Javonte, right? We make fun of like, who's this year's Kyron? It's like, there isn't fucking one, because that's just how this stuff works. There's probably not a Javonte next year, but you can learn from, like you said, like if I'm willing to draft, if I'm willing to draft Michael Wilson, if I'm willing to draft Alec Pierce, if I'm willing to draft, Miles Sanders. I understand Javonte is more expensive, but it's like,
but wasn't that much more expensive?
Because he got real cheap because everybody hated him. So
everyone hated him. Yeah, that's why I'm like, why couldn't I have just drafted Javonte, Jaden Blue, Javonte, Miles Sanders, and just taken 2 cracks at that backfield? Mm-hmm. If the first starter is outside the top 100 picks, I do want to take more cracks at two guys on the same team.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably. I mean, it's tough because once it gets more expensive than that, I think it starts to get kind of bad pretty quickly. Because you run into like Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason, right? Like theoretically, like that's okay, I guess. But like then the Vikings suck, and you have two.
You run risks, of like this is really bad because they're both losses because
They're both losses.
Because
it feels like they can't be both losses. I'm like,
right.
They
it feels like that. You're like, it's the Vikings. It's O'Connell. Like there's always a good back, right? Like Ty Chandler did stuff on it. Of course, how could they possibly be both losses? And then like, just that's the chaos, the variance part of it. Like, who thought that the Vikings would be this bad and JJ McCarthy would be this bad? Like nobody was actually predicting that. So like, but you introduce that risk, the pricier it gets. Right.
Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason teams have a 9.38% advance rate right now.
I would take that over some of my shitty running back rooms.
You're like and one of them was like healthy the whole time, right? I guess there was a Xavier Scott week, but basically you had a guy.
Jordan Mason's pretty much been healthy the whole season. Yeah. It's just that Aaron Jones been in and out of the lineup. Jordan Mason had really just one. I know he had a okay game this week, but it was just the Bengals explosion that's probably keeping his advance rate.
And there's still pretty big opportunity costs in those rounds where like that's prime quarterback territory.
Mm-hmm.
There's still, some good wide receivers there. Like, there is still opportunity cost there. So frankly, there's just other running backs that you could have hit on there as well. But I think once the guy gets into that, where it's like two cracks and only one of them's a top 100 pick or both aren't top 100 picks, I do want to do more of that next year. The Chase Brown, Zach Moss, you had that for a minute, and then both of them got more expensive, I think, or at least Brown did.
No, they switched, right? It was Moss. Moss was ahead, and then
Brown,
and then Brown flipped them. It was kind of like one was always going in the 80s and one was going at like pick 100, but it was just at the beginning. Yeah, it was Moss and
yeah. I think
that was Tracy and Scadaboo this year, right?
That was Tracy.
Scadaboo was going ahead. And then Scat missed like all of training camp, and it was like, oh yeah, Tyron Tracy is the starter. And then the other interesting thing about that is like, I don't think you and I particularly were worried about Scadaboo as like a player, but you talked about draft capital where it's like, ooh, he's missing all of the summer, and he was a 4th round pick. He's not.
I got a little nervous during that period, but then I quickly got back on board once he was.
And I didn't get back on board enough, and that's the interesting part. The last thing I wanted to bring up is. So like DeAndre Swift could be included in this range of the draft. He ended up getting really like Jesus Christ on draft.
He steamed.
It was crazy. But an interesting other element to this, which sometimes misses, but also I'm a little bit more thinking that this is something we should sink our teeth into every year is like the camp, like we talked about drum beat, right? So, sometimes you get your Corey Krosky-Marriott where the drum beat is maybe not so good. I'm not totally convinced it's all his fault. But also, like, if you recall the Kyle Monungai stuff, like I know you're in the Coach Speak Index Discord too, and he would like post like almost like jokes about like days since they mentioned Roshan Johnson at Bears camp or whatever. And it was like, I don't know, man, they're talking about Kyle Monungai every single day. And like talking about
I started drafting him at the end. I was not into Monungai as a prospect, kind of for all the reasons that if you watch Monungai, you see like the ceiling is capped.
Yeah.
But like he does his thing, he definitely does his thing. And I didn't give enough credit for that. So I started drafting Monungai at the end, but yeah, you're like, what are they? The Bears backfield was always such a conundrum because I was like, it can't just be DeAndre Swift.
No.
But what else is it going to be?
Right.
It can't be Monungai.
But isn't that when you don't, I'm not saying to draft him. Like you said, I think you probably played this well. But you didn't believe in Monungai.
Okay.
They shoved it down your throat.
Because I drafted some Swift.
Right? This isn't like we like kind of like this guy. This isn't, you remember, this is what got me. I actually drafted a bunch of Javonte and then I backed off at the end because you remember the one quote from Shanny where they were asking about the backfield. Javonte had been working as a starter all year, but he wouldn't stop talking about everybody. Right. Miles Sanders, vet. We trust him, whatever. Jaden Blue, super explosive. We like to use Kavonte Turpin in the backfield. We got to get him touches. The Deuce or Malik. Like he literally talked. And then you get Hunter Lepke, baller. Right. He just said Hunter
they
Lepke.
would always,
which got me cold feet about Javonte.
Me too. I was like, it's gonna be split. It's gonna be gross.
Exactly.
They're not gonna feed anybody. And they fed the shit out of Javonte,
which was clearly wrong. But the Monungai thing was that they shoved, like Ben Johnson was shoving it down your throat for 3 months. Like, I'm telling you, we like this kid. And so eventually it just becomes like, at what point do we stop pretending we know better? And sometimes we, that's another one of those weird things, like how many rookies, right, versus these chaperones that we take.
But it's tough too with Monungai. Like Monungai I have on, and I don't think the team's going to get through, but it's a team that has been kind of on the bubble for me at 5-5 over on DraftKings. And it's like, I think it's actually dead now, but it had Rico Dowdle and Monungai and, some other stuff. But that I was like, oh, this is actually like really fun now. This seems like it's their running back team. And I had those guys and, a few others, but 3-4 weeks ago, I was like, oh my God, like I've got the guys you want.
Mm-hmm.
But so I have a little Monungai, but then the problem with Monungai, right, is that he was never in line to be the starter. So you always had to pass DeAndre Swift. And say what you want about DeAndre Swift, and I've said a lot, but he's like way more talented physically than Kyle Monungai. He's got way more receiving ability. He's so much more explosive. And I mean, Swift has been much better than I thought he'd be as far as consistency goes. Ben Johnson's even talked about how he's way more bought into the system this year. And Swift has been a good pick. That's the other thing. Swift has been Swift has I think a 20% advance rate. I'll check that.
And whether or not his advance rate is good, I mean, he's just
he's been a good pick.
Fantasy points. He's just been
you're happy to have him.
Very good. Absolutely.
Yeah. So then Monungai is now obviously we know Swift's actually at 22%. We know that if Swift were to get hurt in the next couple of weeks, that Monungai would be an absolute smash. So he's been a really good pick.
We've already seen that.
Yeah. Process wise, he's been a great pick, but it was tough for me. It was tough for me to get on board with because it's like, this isn't really a committee, I have to believe in the talent of the player to take the backfield away from someone else. And I just really don't. And I'm still not sure I do. He's more Zach Charbonnet than he is like someone who's going to like come take the backfield.
He's getting better. That's the interesting thing about running backs is we kind of view them as like finished products generally. And I don't think that's like wrong generally, is you kind of are what you are as a running. You can get better at certain things, right? He's notably more decisive, and that's his thing, right? He's a downhill smash, like you said, Charbonnet, like smash mouth type runner. He's not gonna like the RJ Harvey thing. McCollum ain't bouncing it to the outside, right, and beating people to the pylon. But he's been significantly better, right? And
he's been good. He's been good.
Has gone on. But I think that's where, and it's just like this is it, right? This is the whole best ball conversation. But like those are the guys that like where you and I are like, we end up like you were like, okay, yeah, I think it's time to draft Monungai. Where I'm like my ears are like perking up the moment in July that they're like, yeah, we love Kyle Monungai, and I'm like, oh, and then like I'm willing to like that, right? But that also it leads me to like, I mean, I have 30 BBM Kyle Monungai teams. Feel really good about that, right? But it also leads you. We talk about like paying a tax is like, should I have 25 of those to limit my Jalen Royals, right? Or should I continue, right? And I don't know what the right answer is. Like
it just takes me more. Yeah. And I think for me too, I'm definitely, sometimes I just can believe in a guy a little bit easier than some other guys. And it's a personal thing. Like 2 years ago, I saw it with Tyrone Tracy, who rated like crap in my model, but I was like, yeah, but I know why he rates like crap, because he was a converted receiver. He didn't have enough of a sample.
25 years old.
Yeah, he's old. Like he doesn't, but he's like, but I can picture how it still works. So I'm going to just draft him and not worry about it. And then you draft a bunch of Vidal, who's like a terrible pick. But then, of course, he's now, a great pick. So it's, some of these things, it's like so funny. Like Vidal should have been a smash last year, actually.
I got roasted, right, from a YouTube commenter multiple times. He has not let me live down the fact that I didn't really like Brian Thomas Jr. that much. before his rookie season, right? Like I was light on Brian. I had concern. Like he was talented, of course, but like I had concerns, right, about Brian Thomas Jr. And just, after one season was like, you are a fucking idiot, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I was. And now we look at this year and it's like, well, right. And I remember I put out, I think one of the Twitter accounts that dunks on people or whatever, I had put out before Tank Bigsby's rookie year that I thought Tank Bigsby was just straight up better than Travis Etienne. And you want to talk about a fucking roller coaster that one was. Like, could not be more wrong. Like Tank Bigsby, like can't catch, can't get on the field, whatever. And then the second year,
he was better in second year.
He is better than Travis Etienne.
He is better.
And then the third year, and then the third. So, but that's like another like interesting part about this that I'm also trying to learn for myself is like, you can be right and you can eventually be right, but you're wrong right now. You can be wrong right now, but be right down the road. And there's just introducing, I want to trust myself and because I think overall it's a net positive, right? I want to trust acting on news. I want to trust my prospect evaluations, but I also want to operate with a level of humility.
Yeah.
That is like, you're not going to be right about everything. And like, there's also got like Travis Etienne, where there's this win condition that we're seeing right now. It's like, you don't really like him, but there's clearly, right? Like Javonte Williams is another one where people, would be stubborn about like, he just sucks. I don't care what you say. He just sucks. Right. And it's like, but what if you're wrong? Like we're seeing what happens right now. If you're wrong, right, about Javonte Williams.
I think one of the things that's tough is when you're wrong about it. So I was optimistic on Javonte in 2024 coming off of the knee injury, his second year off the knee injury, might be better, behind a good offensive line. And then Javonte was like not even startable, in like, it's just, there wasn't any competition. It's like, should we start Javonte this week? He's like, God, I don't think, what's the point? Like he maybe scores a touchdown. Like he's just doing nothing. And then, so now you're supposed to believe that he's going to like take over the backfield in Dallas, like, and look better. It just seems so implausible. But obviously, some of my feelings about how likely that was tainted by having been optimistic that it could happen the previous year, and then it doesn't happen. And you're like, no, like it's over. Like, a microcosm of that this week would be JJ McCarthy. I was like, I've been kind of willing to be optimistic about his ability to take advantage of bad matchups as like a cheap DFS quarterback. And then this week I was just like, I'm not doing this again. And this was actually the week to do it. It's like, if I had written him off, if I had been like, I'm not doing JJ McCarthy and been right this whole time, I bet you I would have been more willing to be like, because you almost get like the parlay of being right every time. So you're like, all right, I'll play him this week now that everyone's off of him, And so I think that, that's one of those biases that's tough, where like you used to be in on this guy and now you got another piece of negative information and you're just like, no, dude, like this just isn't happening. You're not fooling me again. I think that's a really dangerous one. And one, like, probably one we need to think about too, with like the Vidals of the world, where those rookie running backs who just don't do anything and then they suck, they suck. Right. Like, and this happened with Tank Bigsby. This happened with Chuba, where you just get written off and it's like, this dude's nothing. He'll never be anything. He was a day 3 guy. He's got an opportunity already. We've seen it. He's bad. And they get another opportunity later and they're really good. So yeah, I mean, the one guy I was going to bring up this year that was easier for me to see compared to Monungai was Brashard Smith. And like, not that much better of a prospect than Monungai, even in my stuff, but I was just like, he's a pass catcher. He's on the Chiefs. So he could be the Jerick McKinnon. By the end of the season, he could have a role, and it's like clearly not going to happen. But he's someone where, in the spirit of a Vidal, I might go back to the well, depending on how training camp plays out. Yeah.
It's actually a really interesting concept, and I've thought a lot about that as well. Where like, the Kamani Vidal syndrome, right? It's like Munchausen syndrome or whatever. Like I don't know what to do with this thing, and I don't want to over index on this crazy Kamani Vidal outcome. But there is something to be said for like growth is not linear, and we give up, and we do the opposite a lot too, right? Or at least sometimes we're very stubborn, but sometimes you're also like, damn, I was way wrong on that guy last year, right? Like totally wrong on that guy, and he was actually very good. And we don't hold to our priors. We're like, I still kind of think maybe I was, he isn't all that good, and maybe this is just me, right? But you'll be like, so here's an example. Last year, I thought Darnell Mooney was a terrible pick on the Falcons. It was like I memed him. There was debates within the Discord because I hated him and other people liked him, and so I put him at like 275 in the rankings for fun, just to troll people. And he was I don't know why he was the only guy I did that with. And naturally, he dunked all over me, right? Just straight dunked all over me. And so this year, the perfect chaperone. Could have used him. This year, I was like, okay, so I was wrong, right? I was wrong about Darnell Mooney, and so he's going to be. And then then he was like plummeting in drafts, and so I'm like, I'm going to buy this Darnell Mooney dip, and it's like, no, you dump. Like now you look back and you're like,
you just provided exit liquidity for the Darnell Mooney drafters from it's like they all knew to get out.
It's like, it's
look
like
at this sale on Darnell Mooney.
We don't want to be the kids at the, my niece is 6 and she's really into soccer, but the kids at the soccer game that they all just huddle around the ball, right? They all just chase the ball. Nobody goes. If one person went on the other side of the field, you would score, but none of them have the awareness, or you're just chasing the ball. You're not chasing to where it's going, right? Skate to where the puck is going, not where it is. And
let the record show I didn't draft Darnell Mooney a single time at this point.
Yeah, and I'm an idiot, right? But it's so easy to do because you're like, okay, I have this new information now that says I was wrong about something, or I was right about something, right? Both of those things can be true, and you're like, well, I was right, so let's keep going back to that well, right? And it's like, oh shit, actually, nope, that Tank Bigsby is useless, right? He's really bad. I don't. Again, these are just things I'm thinking about. These are not things that I think I have figured out by any stretch. But it's always fascinating because the ups and downs. You could be right. Was Tank Bigsby right? Was Tank Bigsby wrong? Was Kamani Vidal right, or was he wrong? And I don't know.
Kamani Vidal was right.
I don't know.
Kamani Vidal was a good pick last year, actually. Even though we all thought he was a bad pick, I think he's a good pick because you just can't. We talked about the chaos of it. I think there's universes where he was an awesome pick last year, and maybe not because he did anything all season, but at the end of the season, he got hot. Whatever he figured out this year, there's probably some universes where he figured it out last year too. And dude is clearly good enough to run really well behind a pretty bad offensive line, by the way, this year, and it was pretty good last year. So there's got to be. There's just way too much chaos. We're talking about how much chaos there's this year where Jonathan Taylor is the smashiest smash of all smashes. And then maybe not even that good of a playoff pick. Maybe, maybe not going to do that much for you once you.
The anti-Undertaker GIF. He did if you did the Undertaker GIF in reverse.
He went back in the coffin.
He closed. He's remember when they set Undertaker's
coffin Homer Simpson back in the bushes. Yeah.
When they set Undertaker's coffin on fire or whatever. That's the Jonathan Taylor season. It's he's crushing in this match, but he gets thrown in the coffin and they lit it on fire. That's Riley Leonard and the Seahawks.
That's Riley Leonard. Yeah. God. So I mean that's just crazy. That's this insane chaos. There's clearly universes where Taylor's the guy you need in 2025 the whole way. So yeah, I mean I just think that some of this stuff to me thinking through the process of it because you see, there's always people that are like, "Oh, Cam Scadaboo was a terrible pick because he got hurt," which I mean, that's just come on. You have to be able to think past
you could
the
argue
specifics of every single season.
Pick. You could argue he was the best pick on the entire board.
Dude he's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously he ran with reckless abandon and was probably going to get hurt in some other way. But the way that he got hurt had nothing to do with his running style. It was just
you would expect him to have a neck injury or head injury because he headbutts everybody and tries to run people over. Not the way he got hurt. Yeah.
Do you think it's good for Jackson Dart's career that Cam Scadaboo's not around to encourage him to headbutt stuff?
Can't be any worse. It can't be any worse. This dude is a moron. Jackson Dart should have stayed at Ole Miss and got another degree. He's great. He's so fun. I'm excited for him. But
He's just getting laid out on the sideline.
And he doesn't care. Like he comes out and they're like, "Don't you think maybe you should protect yourself a little bit?" And he gives this bullshit like he thinks he's like tough. I guess
know.
Is like he has that like he has a lot of learning to do in that regard.
He's got to screw.
You're actually not tough. Yeah, you're actually not any tougher by getting yourself injured and hurting your team. Like you could have stepped out of bounds and not one single person would have thought you were not tough, dude.
Like Josh Allen can always remind us that he's actually a superhero when he's picking his spots now.
Mm-hmm.
But those spots are like winning games,
right?
Like straight up. Like he's just like, oh, how about I just win this game right now?
He doesn't stay inbounds along the sideline to just get absolutely.
No, he just doesn't get hurt for no reason. Yeah, God, but I'm so glad Jackson Dart's in the league. He's fun.
Kafka came out too afterwards, and like he kind of like didn't say anything. So like the whole like Dayball's getting him hurt. First of all, Kafka was the offensive coordinator. The whole like Dayball's getting him hurt by running him too much and stuff like that got debunked fast. Like Kafka like doesn't seem to care that he's not sliding really. And Dayball has been saying since the preseason, like remember Dart got hurt, not hurt, but like got hit hard a bunch of times in his first preseason game, even though he played really well. And afterwards, the first thing Dayball says, like he's got to be smarter. He's got to learn how to protect himself and all that. He was trying so hard to keep Jackson Dart healthy because he knows he's good, but my God, he's fun. But I don't know how long how many games we're gonna get from Jackson Dart every year the way he plays.
Yeah. All right, I gotta heart out in like a minute.
Okay. Here's what I want to hear. What's the thing in the fantasy playoffs that you're most like excited for, right? Like what do you want to see on teams, or like what's a thing that we're about to be? We have one game left as we record this in week 14. In week 15, you flip over teams in Best Ball Mania or DraftKings Millie or 555 or whatever, and you're like, I want to see this.
So I want to see either Trey McBride or Brock Bowers or George Kittle turn in one of those weeks where you had to not that you never have to have it, but like where you kind of have to have it. And we have McBride is our best bet because he gets the Texans this week, not so great, but then he gets the Falcons and then he gets the Bengals. And think about the passing volume. If you get a Trey McBride team to the finals, oh man, that could be good. So he's a really strong bet to be one of those dudes. You also do have Brock Bowers getting the Giants in week 16, but his schedule's pretty tough. Who do they play? I just had it.
Philly, Houston.
So that's gonna be tough for you to get there with him. But yeah, I would also be happy if it's George Kittle. They get the Titans this week, then they get the Colts, then they get the Bears. So he's probably your best bet actually. And I mean, I just the elite tight end discourse. This is one of the classic. I think week 4 or 5 or something. You get the like. This is your reminder that elite tight end is a scam type tweets. It's just like like McBride has been an awesome pick.
Awesome.
Like and he would be a much better pick if not for the fact that Jonathan Taylor happened to have that ADP on that side of the board. If Taylor was a 1-2 pick, McBride's advance rate would be like nuts because
you can have Jamar Chase, Trey McBride, JSN teams like in every draft if you wanted. Every time you got the 101, if you wanted to.
If you wanted, which we weren't taking JSN high enough, but McBride's at a 20% advance rate. I mean, he should be. I guess you could say he and probably is paired with Jonathan Taylor at a decent rate, but I was taking McBride in the second, so it wasn't as easy for me to get him in a third. but man, I would love for one of these elite tight ends to do one of the weeks that they really only they have access to, where they just go nuclear. So that's something I'm rooting for. Of course, I'm rooting for my guy Harold Fannin to do it again, tight end wise. But I just think it'd be fun if we get, and of course it is fluky, if these tight ends putting up that type of spike week in that week where we've decided for this game that it counts more than week 12 or whatever. But it'd still be very fun because we've seen a couple times with McBride now that he scores touchdowns with Brissett and with Bowers that they can just access a ceiling that not a lot of other guys can.
I mean, the easy slam dunk answer for me is if you could get one guy to week 17, it's Trey McBride, and I'm not sure that it's particularly close for me. Let me just, I said on
Bengals,
dude,
the Bengals.
The Bengals stuff is so wild. So they played the Bills this week, right? If you want to know how bad this team is against the tight end position, and like I like kind of hate the like defense first position stuff, and
it's pretty noisy.
There's nothing,
especially tight end.
But there's nothing I can say about the Bengals with tight ends that can ever like make any sense, because it is every Hunter Henry 30 ball, right? Like it just doesn't matter who it is. They go nuts. Here are the Bills. They played 3 tight ends this week, right? Dalton Kincaid's dragging around his right leg around the field. Dawson Knox with Dalton Kincaid out there, 6 for 93. Dalton Kincaid, 4 for 41 and 1 touchdown. Oh, you know who scored another touchdown? Jackson fucking Hawes, tight end 3 for the Buffalo Bills. They combined for 11 catches for 137 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Bills tight ends did against the Bengals. What the hell would Trey McBride do in that game on the 57 pass attempts that Jacoby Brissett will throw? That's it for me for sure.
Yeah, I like literally have to run, but
we're gonna get out of here. Go get
also
the
Drake
sidekick.
May.
Use 40% off. Also, Drake May, of course. Use 40% off with code LEGUP at Spike Week. And we'll see you guys soon. We'll come back in another playoff week and sweat some basketball teams. See you guys next week. Cheers.